Today, Venezuela stands at a crossroads of emotion, caught between relief and uncertainty, hope and hesitation. For many Venezuelans, the news of Nicolás Maduro's capture feels surreal. It is a moment they once imagined but never fully believed would arrive. After years of political turmoil, economic collapse and social hardship, the immediate reaction is not celebration, but cautious relief. People are breathing again, but quietly. In the streets, in homes, and across the Venezuelan diaspora, the same sentence keeps repeating. We feel relieved, but there's a lot of questions. And those questions matter. Relief comes from the sense that a chapter may finally be closing. A chapter marked by shortages, forced migration, broken institutions, and silenced voices. For millions, Maduro's rule symbolized stagnation and suffering, a system where power felt permanent and accountability impossible. His capture challenges that belief. It signals that no leader is untouchable forever. But relief alone is not enough to heal a nation. Relief mixed with uncertainty captures the emotional state of a nation that has waited a long time for a moment it never fully trusted would arrive. For many Venezuelans, the news of Maduro's capture brought a quiet exhale rather than loud celebration. It was the feeling of pressure easing after years of tension, not the joy of victory. Relief appeared first because something immovable had finally moved, because a symbol of permanence suddenly proved fragile. Yet almost immediately, that relief was followed by hesitation, by the awareness that one moment, no matter how historic, does not automatically repair a broken system. People across Venezuela and in the diaspora describe the same contradiction. There is comfort in knowing that accountability may no longer be a distant idea, but there is also fear of disappointment shaped by experience. Venezuelans have lived through announcements that promised change and delivered very little. They have seen leaders fall while structures remain intact, power rearranged rather than transformed. That memory tempers relief with caution, reminding people that hope must now be measured. Uncertainty grows from unanswered questions. What legal process will follow, and will it be transparent? Will justice be pursued carefully, or rushed for political advantage? Many Venezuelans understand that how this moment is handled matters as much as the moment itself. A flawed process could deepen mistrust rather than heal it. Relief fades quickly when people sense that the same patterns of secrecy and manipulation might continue under a different banner. There is also uncertainty rooted in daily survival. Years of economic collapse have trained people to think practically before emotionally. Parents wonder whether food prices will stabilize, whether wages will finally mean something, whether basic services will improve. Students question whether education will once again open doors instead of leading to migration. Relief does not fill empty shelves, and uncertainty grows when immediate conditions remain unchanged. Fear quietly accompanies this transition. Political change can bring instability, and instability is something Venezuelans know too well. Some worry about retaliation, power struggles, or unrest that could follow. Others fear that international attention will move on too quickly, leaving Venezuela alone at a critical moment. Relief is fragile when the future feels undefined, and uncertainty thrives when protection seems temporary. For those who left the country, the emotion is even more complex. Distance intensifies hope but also skepticism. Many want to believe this moment could mark the beginning of return, reunification, and rebuilding. At the same time, they hesitate to trust it. Migration taught them that believing too early can be painful. Relief exists, but it is restrained, waiting for proof that this change is real and lasting. Generational perspectives deepen the contrast. Younger Venezuelans, raised amid crisis, experience relief as possibility. For them, uncertainty is familiar, but the idea of movement offers something new. Older generations carry heavier doubt. They have seen cycles repeat, watched optimism dissolve, and learned to protect themselves from disappointment. Relief does not erase memory, and uncertainty feeds on it. The emotional tension also reflects a deeper question about identity. For years, Venezuela has been defined internationally by crisis, authoritarianism, and collapse. This moment challenges that narrative but does not replace it yet. Relief comes from the chance to redefine the country's story. Uncertainty comes from not knowing who will be allowed to write the next chapter and whether ordinary citizens will finally have a voice in it. Institutions sit at the center of this emotional balance. Trust cannot be restored through symbolism alone. Courts, elections, and governance must demonstrate consistency and fairness. Relief will only deepen if people see rules applied equally and decisions explained openly. Uncertainty lingers when power feels arbitrary, even after dramatic change. Relief mixed with uncertainty is not weakness or indecision. It is the response of a population shaped by endurance. It reflects intelligence born from hardship, the understanding that real transformation is slow and fragile. Venezuelans are not rejecting hope, they are protecting it. They are watching closely, measuring actions instead of words, waiting to see whether this moment becomes a turning point or another pause before disappointment. A nation holding its breath describes the collective pause that settles over a country when history shifts suddenly, and no one is sure which direction it will move next. In Venezuela, this moment is filled with silence more than noise, with waiting more than celebration. People are watching, listening, and measuring every signal, because experience has taught them that what comes after the headline matters more than the headline itself. The capture of a long-standing figure of power has interrupted a familiar rhythm, and in that interruption, the nation hesitates, unsure whether to step forward or remain guarded. This breath is held not out of fear alone, but out of awareness. Venezuelans understand that political change is rarely clean or simple. It unfolds through negotiations, power shifts, and decisions made behind closed doors. While the world may see a single event, the people living inside it feel the weight of consequences still to come. Holding one's breath becomes a form of self-protection, a way to stay alert rather than vulnerable. Daily life continues, but with an undercurrent of tension. Conversations feel cautious. People lower their voices when discussing what might happen next, not because they lack opinions, but because they know how quickly circumstances can change. Hope feels present, yet restrained. No one wants to celebrate too early, to believe too deeply before evidence appears. A nation holding its breath is a nation that has learned the cost of premature optimism. Uncertainty spreads through every layer of society. Workers wonder if economic policies will finally shift, or if inflation will continue to erase their efforts. Business owners question whether stability will return or if new restrictions will emerge. Students wait to see if opportunity will replace stagnation. Each group pauses, collectively inhaling, waiting for signals that suggest a clear direction. Until those signals arrive, movement feels risky. The breath is also held because trust has been damaged over time. Trust does not return automatically with the removal of a leader. It requires consistency, transparency, and accountability repeated over months and years. Venezuelans are watching closely for signs that institutions will act independently rather than symbolically. Every delay, every unclear statement, every closed-door decision adds weight to the uncertainty. Holding one's breath becomes a response to ambiguity. For families separated by migration, this pause is deeply emotional. Many want to believe this moment could lead to reunions, returns, and rebuilding lives that were interrupted, yet they hesitate to make plans. A nation holding its breath includes millions watching from afar, emotionally tethered to a homeland they left out of necessity. Distance amplifies anticipation, but also skepticism, creating a fragile balance between longing and restraint. There is also a global dimension to this pause. International actors, organizations, and governments now play a role in shaping what follows. Venezuelans know that foreign involvement can help or complicate progress. They wait to see whether international pressure will support genuine reform or prioritize strategic interests. The breath is held as the country gauges whether it will be supported consistently or momentarily before attention shifts elsewhere. Emotionally, holding one's breath reflects exhaustion. Years of crisis have trained people to conserve emotional energy. Celebration requires confidence in continuity, and that confidence has been eroded by repeated disruptions. Waiting feels safer than reacting. Silence feels wiser than noise. In this stillness, people observe patterns, looking for signs that this moment is different from those that came before. The pause also reveals resilience. A nation holding its breath has not given up, it is preparing. It is assessing risks, reading between the lines, and protecting itself from disappointment. This restraint is not apathy. It is awareness sharpened by hardship. People are ready to move, but only when the ground feels stable enough to support them. Time becomes the most powerful factor. Each passing day without clarity prolongs the breath. Each concrete action toward transparency allows it to slowly release. Venezuelans are not demanding perfection, they are watching for direction. Until the future becomes more defined, the nation remains suspended in this moment, lungs full, eyes open, waiting to see whether the exhale will bring relief, resolve, or another reason to brace itself again. After the capture, what comes next? Is the question echoing through homes, streets, and conversations, both whispered and open, because the fall of a powerful figure does not automatically answer the deeper problems a nation faces. For many Venezuelans, The capture feels less like an ending, and more like the removal of a pause button that has been pressed for years. Attention now shifts from the individual to the system, from the dramatic moment to the long process that follows it. The uncertainty begins with justice. People want to know whether legal proceedings will be transparent, fair, and independent, or whether they will be shaped by political convenience. How this process unfolds will define public trust more than the capture itself. If justice appears selective or rushed, confidence will erode quickly. If it appears careful and open, it may begin to repair years of damage. Venezuelans understand that justice delayed has cost them dearly, but justice distorted could cost even more. Questions also surround leadership and transition. Who will hold power now, and under what legitimacy? Many fear a reshuffling of faces rather than a transformation of governance. History has taught them that removing one leader does not dismantle the networks that sustain that leader. What comes next depends on whether institutions are strengthened or merely repurposed. The absence of clear direction fuels anxiety and slows the ability of people to plan their lives with confidence. Economic survival remains central to this question. Political events matter deeply, but daily reality matters more. Will inflation ease? Will jobs become stable? Will basic services recover? Venezuelans know that political change without economic relief feels abstract. What comes next must reach the kitchen table, the workplace, and the classroom. Without visible improvement in daily life, hope risks becoming another unfulfilled promise. Social healing is another uncertain path. Years of polarization have fractured families, friendships, and communities. After the capture, there is a need for dialogue that does not deepen division. Revenge may feel emotionally satisfying to some, but it risks extending the cycle of instability. Many Venezuelans are asking whether reconciliation is possible, and if so, how it can be achieved without erasing accountability. The balance between justice and healing will shape the nation's emotional recovery. For the millions who left the country, the question of what comes next carries personal weight. They wonder whether this moment could mark the beginning of return, or whether it is safer to remain abroad. Decisions about returning home depend not on headlines, but on sustained change. Each unclear signal delays those choices, keeping families in a state of emotional suspension. International involvement complicates the path forward. Support from outside can help stabilize transition, but it can also introduce competing interests. Venezuelans are watching closely to see whether global attention translates into long-term commitment or fades once the news cycle moves on. What comes next will be shaped partly by whether the world stays engaged when progress becomes slow and complex. The psychological impact of this moment is profound. After years of power feeling permanent, its sudden disruption forces people to rethink what is possible. That realization brings both hope and anxiety. Hope that change can happen, and anxiety about navigating unfamiliar ground. When certainty disappears, people must relearn how to imagine the future. What comes next is not a single event or decision. It is a sequence of choices made under pressure. Observed by a population that has learned to be cautious. Venezuelans are watching not for perfection but for consistency. They are listening for honesty rather than slogans. They are waiting to see whether this moment becomes a foundation for rebuilding or another chapter of unresolved transition. The capture has answered one question, but it has opened many more, and the direction they take will define the country's path forward. Relief is the first emotion, but it cannot be the last. Now comes the harder work: truth, justice, reconciliation, and rebuilding. Those processes are slow. They require transparency, patience, and international responsibility. Most of all, they require listening to the Venezuelan people, not using their suffering as a headline, but honoring it with action. Today, Venezuelans are watching history unfold with cautious eyes. They are not asking for miracles, they are asking for answers. And this time, they are hoping those answers finally arrive.